My first job I had, I was actually working for my dad's company, which was a lumber and supply company, and I was in charge of doing all the work nobody else wanted to do. So basically stocking the shelves, sweeping the floors, pricing things. That was my first job, and I was 14 years old.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Sunnyvale, but spent most of my time in Cupertino. So I went to various different schools in Cupertino, but it was right on the border of Sunnyvale and Cupertino, but technically Sunnyvale, but most of my time was, depending on the day, was in Cupertino or Sunnyvale.
And then, who was your best friend in high school?
My best friend in high school? Oh gosh, probably a guy named Gary Mullins. I have not talked to him in a long time. For us, he was probably my best friend in high school. We both played baseball together.
What was your favorite school dance experience?
School dance experience. I actually went to my senior prom, and I went there with a girl who was much taller than me. And come to find out, she had a friend that wanted to go with us, and they ended up wearing the same exact dress, which is a big no-no if you think about going to a prom. So we walked around with the same dress, or they did anyways, and so it was kind of funny, but they didn't communicate, so oh well.
What type of student were you in high school?
I was I was not a typical Monte Vista High School student. There was school, and when school ended, I went home. I didn't hang around too much. I was more into athletics than I was actual education. I was just kind of like, I go to school to go to school. It wasn't not much of an AP kind of guy. It was just, I was more involved in extracurriculars than I was in the academic part.
Mm-hmm. What are the two most important items in your backpack or bag?
In my backpack or my bag? That's right there. One's my laptop. Normally, it's in there. That would be number one. It's not mine. It's the school's, but it's important because it got a lot of stuff on it. The other one that was in there, most important in my backpack, I would probably say probably my water bottle, which is not in it. It's out of it right now. But those two, you need water. You have to hydrate. So those two things are probably the most important for me.
What is your favorite restaurant and then your favorite item on that menu?
A favorite restaurant to go to. If I could pick a restaurant right now to go to, so I would say I'm a big pizza guy. So I would say any pizza place, Jake's Pizza in Saratoga, go to that one. So if it's pepperoni and sausage, I'll eat it right there. So if I could do that, I would do. That's what I did for my birthday dinner. So I just said, my family lets us pick for our birthday where we go to dinner. I just said, no, I want pizza. And so it was pepperoni and sausage. That's what it was. So I'd say probably there.
What would you eat for your last meal?
Oh, probably pepperoni and sausage pizza. That's probably be it. Right there, that would probably would have exactly what I would do.
Describe yourself as a person in 3 words.
Funny, honorable, and kind.
What's the last concert you've been to?
The last concert I went to. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think it was No Doubt. With Gwen Stefani. It was years and years ago. It was at Shoreline. So my friend just said he wanted to go. And I think that was the last concert I actually went to, but it was like 5 or 6 years ago. So.
What's the first thing you do when you get home?
First thing I do is I clean up the house. We have a lot of stuff that's just left out, and things need to put away. The dishes from lunch, my stuff from school has to go away. I have to get my son organized. I got to get him out of his car seat and let him play on the floor. So it's basically just organizing and kind of cleaning up a little bit.
What did you bring for lunch today?
Today was lasagna. It's gone. It was delicious. It was lasagna and French bread.
What's your favorite holiday?
My favorite holiday, I think probably Christmas would be my favorite holiday. We go back and see my wife's family in Montana every year, so it's nice to see them. But it's also it's a different change of scenery. It's oftentimes cold and snowy, and we don't usually see that around here. So But it's just nice. It's be around family and see people you don't get to see very often. So I'd say probably Christmas.
What's your least favorite holiday?
My least favorite holiday would probably be Valentine's Day. The reason being it falls right after my birthday. So I think it ruins my birthday. So I like to tell people that I spread love, and then here comes this next holiday about love. So it's just, something Hallmark, I think, created or something, or Shoebox, whoever makes those cards, made up this holiday. It's like, but it's around my birthday, so I feel like it infringes on my time. So
what are some hobbies you have?
I always have. So I like to watch sports. Sports are a big thing for me and my family. I also like to do a lot of woodworking when I get a chance. So build things out of wood. I like to play golf when I get a chance to play golf. I could probably play today because it's 75 degrees outside in March. But those are some of the things I like to do.
What do you feel about bald jokes?
I love bald jokes. They're the best jokes ever. Right there. I tell people, students, that I'm a bald and beautiful man. That's what I am. And they ask me, what happened to your hair? I said, well, you asked me so many questions, so I scratched my head too much and just all floats away. So kind of do. Those are my favorite types of jokes. Some people don't like them, but, I like them. It's my go-to joke, pretty much is what it is.
How did you meet your wife, Mrs. Johnson?
We met here at Monte Vista 10 years ago or so. That's when we met. So yeah, we met here at school when I got hired on 10 years ago.
What's the biggest or the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice that I've ever received. It's one that I echo a lot. I always say that you have to give up something to get something. So kind of the idea that you're restricted by a lot of things in life. And like time is one of them. So sometimes you have to, sacrifice something to get something else to be able to make it fit within your time frame of life.
Who's your biggest inspiration?
My biggest inspiration. I'd say two people, probably my wife, Mrs. Johnson, and probably my son. He looks just like me. He has lack of hair, but you see him each and every day. He's a smiley, happy-go-lucky kind of kid. So it's just kind of like, you go to work every day and do everything you're supposed to do, and in the back of your mind you're doing it for him, to help him out later on in life. So just looking at him, he's just inspires me to do things and be better.
What's the funniest thing you've seen your son do?
The funniest thing I've seen him do? What is the most hilarious thing? His thing nowadays is he likes to wave. He waves at anybody. He loves people. So the other day I dropped him off at daycare, and the parking lot was kind of bare. There wasn't a lot of people in there, and all of a sudden he just starts waving. And I said, Riley, who are you waving at? And he's waving at some person all the way across the parking lot with a mother and a child, and they waved back. And then he went into the daycare center. He waved at all the ladies in the office, and then there were painters there. He was waving at the painters. He just seems to like to wave at everybody. So he loves people, and so, it was kind of funny to watch him just go around and just wave at everybody.
What are your thoughts on love?
Love's, I would say, definitely a powerful thing, but it's something I think everybody should find. It's not always a person. Sometimes it's a thing or something you like to do, but you should have something in life that you love. In life, like I said, it doesn't have to be a person. I mean, hopefully there are people you love in life, and hopefully people love you. But you should always have something you love and that you're passionate about. I think love and passion kind of goes together, and there are things that you should have in your life. Something in your life that you're passionate and that you love.
What's your favorite, teaching world history or U.S. history?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a tough question. That's the hardest question right there. World history. It's always fascinating because the students, the sophomores, when I first see them, are very squirrely, and they act like freshmen. And then you kind of see their mature growth throughout the school year. The juniors, the topic is U.S. history. There's a lot more you can do with it in terms of teaching, and so it's a lot more fascinating to me than world, but I would say it all depends if I'm looking at the students or if I'm looking at the the topic itself. The juniors are cool. They're a little intense sometimes. So as the year goes by, so you got to kind of calm them down a little bit. So it depends on the students or the topic. It sometimes changes from a unit to unit. Some units in world history I don't like, and some of them in U.S. history I do. So it all depends on what I'm teaching at that given time.
Who's your favorite historical figure of all time?
Of all time, I'd probably say Abraham Lincoln. I think he's just somebody that stood up for something that was wrong. People forget he was a politician, but I think definitely he's one of the more genuine politicians that we've seen throughout United States history.
Who's your favorite actor?
My favorite actor, if I had to pick a favorite actor, this is kind of going back. I would say it's Chevy Chase, and most people don't know who Chevy Chase is. He was from the 1980s. He was on Saturday Night Live. I like all of his movies. If you've ever seen like the vacation movies, National Lampoon's Vacation, Christmas Vacation, he was in all those movies. And I have a bunch of his movies, and I just think, that he would probably be my favorite actor, because I do like the 1980s.
What's the weirdest thing you've overheard your students talking about?
The weirdest thing I've heard them talking about. I find it's interesting. They always talk about other classes and teachers, even though I tell them, don't always do that. But they'll always run in, and they'll be, complaining about something. And they complain always a little too loud, and so sometimes you can hear. But I think that on a daily basis, that's the weirdest thing. It's like, you come into our classroom, and all of a sudden they just had a test in whatever class, and all of a sudden they have to just like let it out, and it's just like, it's like you just kind of let it go for a period. So I mean, that's on a daily basis. Those are kind of weird things. Is like, just kind of like let it go. Sometimes I tell them, I don't know what the weirdest thing is ever in my teaching history. I did have a student one time tell me his dog actually ate his homework. It ended up being legitimate. So I mean, it's like, that's very odd. I said that's the old school thing about what happens to your homework. But that was years and years ago. That was one of the odder things I actually had.
Do you plan to get your son interested in baseball?
I do. I think that I will expose him to the different things, different sports and different activities and different things to do. Whether he chooses to do it is totally up to him. That's not my choice. But I like to expose him to as many things as we can. We've exposed him to art. He doesn't seem to be a big fan of painting right now, but maybe later on he'll pick it up. But I think the most important thing is just to expose him to as many different things and different opportunities that are out there, and let him make his own decision for himself.
What's your favorite book?
My favorite book of all time. I'm trying to think of my favorite book that I read. God, I'd have to go back. I don't read novels or anything like that, so it'd be a historical book that I would have to think of off the top of my head. There was a book that was very interesting called The Confessions of Nat Turner. Nat Turner was a led a slave revolt, but this was a book, a historian looking back and analyzing that revolt. And so it was very fascinating. It's a time period that I enjoy very much in history during just before the Civil War. So I would say that was probably one of my more favorite books that I read.
What's your favorite subject besides history?
Favorite subject besides history? If PE could count, I would take physical education as my favorite subject. That was something I took 4 years of PE in high school just because I could. So, I was getting out and moving and exercising, and that's what I pick.
If you could give your high school self a piece of advice, what would it be?
My high school self a piece of advice. What would it be? I would say don't sweat the little things. I think sometimes trying to look back at, sometimes, we get caught up in the little small things, and they tend to weigh you down and tend to infect your day. And I would say don't get caught up in those little small things, and just kind of enjoy yourself and move on when it's your time to move on.
What's one city you've dreamed of traveling to?
I've dreamed of traveling to, so I've been to a variety of different cities. Where have I not gone that I would like to go? Chicago's always on my list. I've been to the East Coast and in the Northwest and a whole bunch of other different cities, but Chicago's a city that I'd like to check out. I'm a big fan of going to any city where there's a baseball team and I can watch a baseball game. So those are usually the top ones on the list. And a place like Wrigley Field where the Cubs play is somewhere I like to check out. So that would be up there.
What's your favorite movie genre?
Movie genre? I like the 1980s comedies that are out there. I just think that it was a really good time for movies surrounding comedies, and they just had some great actors, and I view them as kind of classic movies.
What's the best gift you've ever been given?
The best gift that anybody ever gave me? Oh boy. I'm trying to think of a gift. I don't know if my son counts as a gift, but maybe we'll count my son as a gift. I mean, not really a gift, but it's I just think he's somebody that's important to me. So I wouldn't say he's a gift, but he's kind of like a gift. So I'd say my son.
What's your favorite song?
My favorite song that I would listen to, it would definitely be from the 1980s, because I like the 1980s. If I had to pick a favorite song from the 1980s, for us, there's a song by Bruce Hornsby called Mandolin Rain. Just a catchy little song from the 80s. He has a bunch of other songs as well. It's one of my favorite songs. Sometimes I'll listen to it just to listen to it.
What's your favorite thing about teaching?
I think my favorite thing about teaching is to interact with students and younger people and watch them develop. I get to teach a subject that I like. I have a degree in history, so being able to teach it, it's always fun. It's always, the day is never the same. Sometimes people go to jobs and they sit in their cubicle and they do the same thing over and over again. The topic for us changes every single day. So what I'm doing changes, and so it keeps me on my toes. But I think working with younger people keeps me young-ish as well.
Was history your favorite subject in high school?
Was it my favorite subject in high school? Yeah, I would say it probably was. I wasn't much of a math person. Math and science weren't really my thing. That was there. Literature wasn't my thing. It was mostly history. If I could, if I look back at the classes I took in high school, history was probably those were my favorite classes.
How has fatherhood changed you?
Oh gosh, how has it changed me? I would say that fatherhood is probably the hardest job that I've ever had. When I went on leave for 10 weeks this year, I came back and told my students that taking care of one little toddler is harder than taking care of 150 of all of you. That it's there. It's just it is one of the hardest jobs. It's something that I think makes being at home and wanting to be home and putting work down and making time for him and for the rest of the family it's changed me. It's you're doing different things now. There isn't as much time to go out there and just say someone grab a friend and say let's go out to dinner. There's a lot of planning that's involved, and so I'd say more grounded.
What do you think of today's music?
To be honest, I don't listen to today's music. I would see sometimes when I was on leave and I was at home, I'd watch like the Today Show. I think it's on NBC there, and they would have a musical guest, and they'd say, "Here comes this person out there." And I remember the one person that came on when I was watching it was what's her Halsey? That's her name, I think, right there. And everybody went nuts in the stands. I'm like, I have no idea who this person is. I've never heard a single song. Then he asked the kids, and they all know the songs. I'm like, well, I guess I'm old and I'm just out of the loop kind of thing. If I had to pick a sport, it would be baseball.
What's your favorite sports team?
It would be the San Francisco Giants. That would be for baseball. For football, Miss Johnson's family is a huge Green Bay Packers fans, and so I kind of inherited the Green Bay Packers as my football team. So those are the two teams that I look for.
What's your favorite thing to watch on ESPN?
On ESPN, I will watch anything on ESPN. The kind of joke with me is that I'll watch anything that has a ball. Doesn't really matter what it is. If you got cricket on TV, I'm going to watch that. I don't necessarily know the rules, but I'll watch it. Rugby, I'll watch. It doesn't really matter. I'll watch the Professional Bowlers Association. It doesn't really matter. But usually, if I'm up later at night, I'll watch SportsCenter. It's the recap of all the sports and the stories that have happened throughout the day.
If you had to bring 3 things with you on a deserted island, what would they be?
I would bring my wife and my son, and then I would probably bring a camera so you can take pictures.
What is your ideal vacation?
My ideal vacation, I'm not. I like shorter vacations, about 5 or 6 days is kind of what I would like. So if I had to go to a place like Hawaii for 5 or 6 days, I'd be perfectly at peace. A place where I wouldn't necessarily have to rent a car to get around, some place where I can just go and relax and walk to places and just enjoy myself.
If there was one thing you could improve about Monte Vista, what would it be?
If there was one thing I would improve about Monte Vista, what would it be? Improve about our school? I don't know what we would improve about this school. We've already got better facilities than when I started here. I think if we can just find a way, we're doing this now, but just to help out the students, getting them ready for not just college, but for after college, and helping them plan for their time and just life in general. I think is something that we're starting to do this now. We've been doing it for a while, but I think it's something that we still need to strive to do.
What's your favorite thing about the Bay Area?
Favorite thing about the Bay Area is the weather. It's 75 degrees right now, and it's March 3rd, so it's been in the 70 degrees the past couple of weeks. It's just it's just an area that has kind of one of the best, I think, climates that you can find. What I wouldn't like about it is there's too many people, but that's just the way it goes. That's why everyone wants to be here, because there's jobs and weather, so that's what it is.
What was your favorite moment from your wedding?
My favorite moment from my wedding. We had a pretty cool wedding. We got married at the Roaring Camp Railroads. Have you ever heard of the Roaring Camp Railroads? It's in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and we actually, besides saying I do and putting on the rings and everything like that, one of the favorite moments was actually we just took a train up into the mountain, and so all of our guests rode on the train as well, and then we took a train back down. So it was kind of something unique that not a lot of people do, and it was kind of cool. It was it's just a different environment and something I haven't seen before.
What was the scariest moment for you as a father?
The scariest moment as a father, I think you had a long time to prep for it. You got yourself 9 months to realize that you're going to be somebody's father. But I do remember that moment when I held him for the first time. It was like, okay, this is my son. And then I remember going home. We were in the hospital for about 5 days, and so we had help of nurses and all the people there. And then all of a sudden, you go home, and there's nurses there. There's no one there to help you out, and it's like that feeling like, okay, you may have read books, you may have done all these things, but it's kind of the real thing now. So I remember just going home. It's like, okay, what is it that we're supposed to do as parents?
When do you feel the most happy?
When do I feel the most happy? I would say probably at home. Being at home at any time, especially with my family there, being around there, and just sometimes we lie on the floor and just play with toys, and I'll play with the toys too, and it's just being around those people that I love, and I think is the biggest happiness that they can find.
What do you want to do post-retirement?
Ooh, what do I want to do post-retirement? Not work. That's number one. For us, it's not for another probably 25 years. So, I mean, there's probably things that I will want to do. A pretty good piece of advice I got from a teacher that did retire is make sure you have something to retire to, which is basically the idea is just don't retire and then have nothing that keeps you going every single day. You have a hobby, take classes, do something. And so I do have hobbies and things, and I'm sure that, in the next 20 years I'll figure it out, but I haven't got that far yet in life.
Why do you love Coca-Cola so much?
Coca-Cola, it's better than Pepsi. Why do I love it? I actually don't drink alcohol, and so and I don't like coffee. So this is kind of the drink of choice for me. I quit drinking a long time ago. Not to say I drank very much, but it wasn't for me, and didn't really like hot drinks. So this seemed to be the best alternative that I could find. That is, they're probably the worst thing for you, but it is what it is.
And then lastly, if you could give a piece of advice to your students, what would it be?
What would I tell my students? I would say focus on the process of doing something and not so much on the outcome. I think is the most important thing. All too often we look at the outcome of something, but we don't understand how we got there. And so if you focus on doing the process, this is what I'm supposed to do today, this is what I'm supposed to do tomorrow, then the outcome kind of takes care of itself. And then you know why the outcome is the way it is. And then you can go back later and make adjustments moving forward in your life.
Okay, great. Have a good day.